Good evening. This is chapter 24 from Mao's Little Red Book, Quotations from Mao Tse Tung, Correcting Mistaken Ideas. Quotation number 1. Even if we achieve gigantic successes in our work, there is no reason whatsoever to feel conceited and arrogant. Modesty helps one to go forward, whereas conceit makes one lag behind. This is a truth we must always bear in mind. Next quotation. With victory, certain moods may grow within the party: arrogance, the airs of self-styled hero, inertia, and unwillingness to make progress, love of pleasure, and distaste for the continued hard living. With victory, the people will be grateful to us, and the bourgeoisie will come forward to flatter us. It has been proved that the enemy cannot conquer us by force of arms. However, the flattery of the bourgeoisie may conquer the weak-willed in our ranks. There may be some communists who are not conquered by enemies with guns, and were worthy of the name of heroes for standing up to these enemies, but who cannot withstand sugar-coated bullets. They will be defeated by sugar-coated bullets. We must guard against such a situation. Next quotation. Many things may become baggage, may become encumbrances if we cling to them blindly and uncritically. Let us take some illustrations. Having made mistakes, you may feel that, come what may, you are saddled with them and so become dispirited. If you have not made mistakes, you may feel that you are free from error and so become conceited. Lack of achievement in work may bring pessimism and depression, while achievement may breed pride and arrogance. A comrade with a short record of struggle may shirk responsibility on this account, while a veteran may become opinionated because of his long record of struggle. Worker and peasant comrades, because of pride in their class origin, may look down upon intellectuals, while intellectuals, because they have a certain amount of knowledge, may look down upon worker and peasant comrades. Any specialized skill may be capitalized on, so may lead to arrogance and contempt of others. Even one's age may become ground for conceit. The young, because they are bright and capable, may look down upon the old, and the old, because they are rich in experience, may look down upon the young. All such things become encumbrances or baggage if there is no critical awareness. Next quotation. Some comrades in the army have been arrogant and high-handed in their behavior towards the soldiers, the people, the government, and the party, always blaming the comrades doing local work but never themselves, always seeking their own achievements but never their own shortcomings, and always welcoming flattery but never criticism. The army must endeavor to eradicate these faults. Next quotation. Hard work is like a load placed before us, challenging us to conquer it. Some loads are light, some heavy. Some people prefer the light to the heavy. They pick the light and shove the heavy on to others. This is not a good attitude. Some comrades are different. They leave ease and comfort to others and take the heavy loads themselves. They are the first to bear hardships and the last to enjoy comforts. They are good comrades. We should all learn from their communist spirit. Next quotation. There are not a few people who are irresponsible in their work, preferring the light to the heavy, shoving the heavy loads onto others and choosing the easy ones for themselves. At every turn, they think of themselves before others. When they make some small contribution, they swell with pride and brag about it for fear that others will not know. They feel no warmth towards comrades and the people, but are cold, indifferent, and apathetic. In fact, such people are not communists, or at least not to be counted as true communists. Next quotation. Those who assert this kind of independence are usually wedded Those who assert this kind of independence are usually wedded to the doctrine of me first, and are generally wrong in the question of relationship between the individual and the party. Although in words they profess respect for the party, in practice they put themselves first and the party second. What are these people after? They are after fame and position and want to be in the limelight. Whenever they are put in charge of a branch of work, they assert their independence. With this aim, they draw some people in, push others out, and resort to boasting, flattery, and touting among the comrades, thus importing the vulgar style of the bourgeois political parties into the Communist Party. It is their dishonesty that causes them to come to grief. I believe we should do things honestly, for without an honest attitude it is absolutely impossible to accomplish anything in this world. Next quotation. Incidentally, maintaining a global empire is one of those things that you cannot do if you are not honest, and if the empire is fundamentally based on dishonesty. Anyways, next quotation. They, communists, must grasp the principle of subordinating the needs of the part to the needs of the whole. If a proposal appears feasible for the partial situation, but not for the situation as a whole, then the part must give way to the whole. Conversely, if the proposal is not feasible for the part, but is feasible in light of the situation as a whole, again, the part must give way to the whole. This is what is meant by considering the situation as a whole. Next quotation. Pleasure-seeking. In the Red Army there are also quite a few people whose individualism finds expression in pleasure-seeking. They always hope that their unit will march into big cities. They want to go there not to work, but to enjoy themselves. The last thing they want is to work in the red areas where life is hard. Next quotation. We must oppose the tendency towards selfish departmentalism, by which the interests of one's own unit are looked after to the exclusion of those of others. Whoever is indifferent to the difficulties of others refuses to transfer cadres to other units on request, or releases only the inferior ones, using the neighbor's field as an outlet for its overflow, and does not give the slightest consideration to other departments, localities, or people. Such a person is a selfish departmentalized who has entirely lost the spirit of communism. Lack of consideration for the whole and complete indifference to other departments, localities, and people are characteristics of a selfish departmentalist. We must intensify our efforts to educate such persons and to make them understand that selfish departmentalism is a sectarian tendency that will become very dangerous if allowed to develop. Next quotation. Liberalism manifests itself in several ways. To let things slide for the sake of peace and friendship when a person has clearly gone wrong, and refrain from principled argument because he is an old acquaintance, a fellow tribesman, a schoolmate, a close friend, a loved one, an old colleague, or old subordinate, or to touch on the matter lightly instead of going into it thoroughly, so as to keep on good terms. The result is that both the organization and the individual are harmed. This is one type of liberalism. To indulge in irresponsible criticism in private instead of actively putting forward one's suggestions to the organization, to say nothing to people to their faces but to gossip behind their backs, or to say nothing at a meeting but to gossip afterwards, to show no regard at all for the principles of collective life, but to follow one's own inclination. This is a second type. So let things drift if they do not affect one's personality. To say as little as possible while knowing perfectly well what is wrong. To be worldly wise and play safe, and seek only to avoid blame. This is the third type. Not to obey orders, but to give pride of place to one's own opinions, to demand special consideration from the organization, but to reject its discipline. This is the fourth type. To indulge in personal attacks, pick quarrels, vent personal spite, or seek revenge instead of entering into an argument and struggling against incorrect views for the sake of unity or progress or getting the work done properly. This is a fifth type. To hear incorrect views without rebutting them, and even to hear counter-revolutionary remarks without reporting them, but instead to take them calmly as if nothing had happened. This is the sixth type. To be among the masses and fail to conduct propaganda and agitation, or speak at meetings, or conduct investigations and inquiries among them, and instead to be indifferent to them and show no concern for their well-being, forgetting that one is a communist and behaving as if one were an ordinary non-communist. This is the seventh type. To see someone harming the interests of the masses and yet not feel indignant or dissuade or stop him or reason with him, but to allow him to continue. This is an eighth type. To work half-heartedly without a definite plan or direction, to work perfunctorily and muddle along. So long as one remains a monk, one goes on tolling the bell. This is the ninth type. To regard oneself as having rendered great service to the revolution, to pride oneself on being a veteran, to disdain minor assignments while being quite unequal to major tasks, to be slapshod in work and slack in study. This is the 10th type. To be aware of one's own mistakes and yet make no attempt to correct them, taking a liberal attitude towards oneself. This is an 11th type. Next quotation. Liberalism is extremely harmful to a revolutionary collective. It is a corrosive which eats away unity, undermines cohesion, causes apathy, and creates dissension. It robs the revolutionary ranks of compact organization and strict discipline, prevents policies from being carried through, and alienates the party organizations from the masses which the party leads. It is an extremely bad tendency. Next quotation. People who are liberals look out upon the principles of Marxism as absolute dogma. They approve of Marxism, but are not prepared to practice it or to practice it in full. They are not prepared to replace their liberalism by Marxism. These people have their Marxism, but they have their liberalism as well. They talk Marxism, but practice liberalism. They apply Marxism to others, but liberalism to themselves. They keep both kinds of goods in stock and find a use for each. This is how the minds of certain people work. Next quotation. The people's state protects the people. Only when the people have such a state can they educate and remold themselves by democratic methods on a countrywide scale, with everyone taking part, and shake off the influence of domestic and foreign reactionaries, which is still very strong, will survive for a long time, and cannot be quickly destroyed. Rid themselves of the bad habits and ideas acquired in the old society, not allow themselves to be led astray by the reactionaries, and continue to advance towards a socialist and communist society. Final quotation from chapter 24. It is hard for one to do a bit of good. What is hard is to do good at all. What is hard is to do good all one's life and never do anything bad. To act consistently in the interests of the broad masses, the young people, and the revolution, and to engage in arduous struggle for decades on end. That's the hardest thing of all! Exclamation point. Thanks for listening. This was chapter 24.